Everybody. We appreciate y'all all coming out tonight. And if you're sitting in the back and you want to come sit a little closer to the front, we got plenty of seats, so, or not, that's fine. For those that don't know, my name is Jason Brinkley. I'm the Director of Planning and Zoning. I've got next to me Tamara Blake-Wallace, who is the Deputy Director of Planning. We've got our Deputy Director of Zoning in the back. Also joining me on stage is, or at the desk, is Kat Lockwood, who's a planner too, and Tay Harris, who is our long-range planner. Jesse Clark was the planner too that was checking you in or taking your information and giving the handout a little earlier. We also have representatives from environmental health here, and then our CMR team is the ones that are putting together the broadcast, because this is also being streamed on YouTube, but it will be made available on our website for those to go back later and watch it if you have individuals that couldn't be here tonight that want to come back and watch it. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. So to set the stage just a little bit, this is, as I've been calling it, we're like at step 1A of walking through the preparation for the updates to the St. Leonard Town Center Master Plan. And we've changed that process a little bit, and we'll walk through that a little bit on the slide. And if y'all that participated in the survey, thank you for doing that. We're going to walk through those results as well. And really what that is this is gathering background as we roll out updates to the master plan for St. Leonard. And tonight, there's no decisions made tonight. We're simply here to provide some information and solicit that feedback from you all as we walk through what will be a several months process. So you've got plenty of time to provide that input. We'll have some time for you to provide that in front of everybody tonight if you want to do it. If not, you can email us. You can set up individual meetings with us. This is a multi-step collaboration of coming up with that plan. But once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out and for being a part of this process, because without your voices, that community input is needed to make sure that we are addressing what needs to be addressed in the plan, and that it's a collaboration between multiple agencies and the public as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kat Lockwood to walk through. We got a short PowerPoint, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
In February of 2025, the Planning Commission approved a new format for the Town Center Master Plans update into a single document called the Master Plan of Town Centers. The first chapter, Town Centers, applies to all town centers and their master plan updates. The subsequent chapters apply to each town center and their master plan updates. The consolidation of all town center master plans updates into a single document eliminates redundancy in the master plan update process. Chapters 1 through 3 are nearly adopted. The Department of Planning and Zoning has initiated preliminary research and public input on chapters 4 through 6. The St. Leonard Town Center Master Plan is chapter 6 of the Master Plan of Town Centers. Before we discuss the survey results, we would like to provide some background information. The U.S. Census Bureau's 2023 American Community Survey 5-year estimates for the St. Leonard Census Designated Place, shown on the image in the center of the slide, indicates a population of 562 people. Since 2020, the population has decreased. The 2023 population represents 0.6% of the county's population. The age breakdown in the top left-hand area of the slide indicates that the largest segment of the population consists of people between the ages of 45 and 64, while the smallest portion is age 65 or older. Between 2020 and 2023, this portion of the population has decreased from 15 to 13%. The demographic composition shown in the lower right-hand corner of the slide indicates that the majority of people are white. The map on the left-hand side of the slide shows the zoning for the area. The town center is shown in dark purple. It is surrounded by the rural neighborhood district shown in orange, the rural community district shown in yellow, the waterfront community district shown in light purple, and the farm and forest district shown in green. The map on the right-hand side of the slide shows the town center's sub-districts. The southernmost sub-district is the mixed-use sub-district. Shown in light brown is a mix of mostly housing and some commercial and agricultural uses. The core sub-district is shown in blue, is mostly commercial uses and some institutional uses. The residential sub-district is shown in pink, is mostly residential uses and some institutional and agricultural uses. The town center is 335 acres and consists of 177 parcels. The existing designated land uses are broken down into residential, exempt, residential/commercial, commercial or agricultural uses. In the town center, there are 142 residential parcels representing 80% of the land area, 7 exempt or institutional parcels representing 4% of the land area, 3 residential/commercial parcels representing 2% of the land area, 18 commercial parcels representing 10% of the land area, and 7 agricultural parcels representing 4% of the land area. The Calvert County Comprehensive Plan calls for the expansion of the town center to include the St. Leonard Elementary School located south of the existing town center boundary. This area includes 1 parcel that is nearly 28 acres in size. When included in the town center boundary, it increases to nearly 363 acres.
Hi, I'm Tay Harris. I'm the long-range planner for the Department of Planning and Zoning. I would just like to add that the maps that we have shown so far on the in the presentation are available on the Master Plan of Town Centers website under Chapter 6 of Leonardtown, and there are additional maps that you can view there as well. So the Department of Planning and Zoning made an online survey available to the public from July 23rd to August 25th, 2025 for the St. Leonard Town Center. The purpose of the survey was to gather public feedback on the vision for the town center in preparation for the town center master plan update. Each survey included an aerial map of the town center boundary, a brief description of the town center, and the following questions. How long have you lived in the town center? If you live outside of the town center, what is your zip code? What is your age group? What are the main draws to the town center? What do you believe the biggest challenge is for the town center? What is the biggest change you have seen in the town center in the last 10 years? In one word, what do you love about the town center? What are the 3 most important topics to be addressed in the town center master plan update? What is the one key element of the town center that you would like to see retained or enhanced? And do you think the town center should remain a designated town center zoning district or be a rural commercial zoning district? In 1983, the St. Leonard was designated town center, and around 2010 it was designated a minor town center, distinguishing it from major town centers such as Prince Frederick and Solomons. In 2022, the Board of County Commissioners eliminated the designation of major and minor town centers. Therefore, all town centers at this point in time are just designated town centers. The crossroads for St. Leonard's lie at Calvert Beach Road and St. Leonard Road. Development mostly consists of single-family homes, agricultural uses, as well as businesses and recreational community uses and churches. The vision for the town center and the mixed-use sub-district will continue to be single-family homes and commercial development. For the core sub-district, it includes commercial development set close to the street when redeveloped or newly developed, with tree-lined streets on a grid pattern. A civic spine is envisioned along the Leonard Drive from Calvert Drive to St. Leonard Road, which would be a new road. At the corner of St. Leonard Drive and the new road, a village green is envisioned, connecting Dalhouse Community Center to the proposed village green. The village green would be used for a farmers market and community events. In the residential subdistrict, there are large lot homes carefully placed within the agricultural setting. And in the current master plan, this is envisioned to continue. Since 1993, highlights of improvements in the town center include tree-lined streets and sidewalks, a grid layout for easier navigation, special entrance signs at the northern gateway, along St. Leonard Road and at Calvert Beach Road, a planted buffer along MD24, the construction of a service road along St. Leonard Road for business access, a traffic light added at MD24 and Ball Road, a streetscape project to improve Main Street in 2003, as well as a retail store and sidewalk repairs and tree removal, and a water system expansion project to improve water distribution and ensure sufficient fire suppression reserves. The town center is not currently served by public sewer. There is a mix of sentiment regarding the provision of public sewer, with the majority against it according to the 2013 master plan update. There were 488 participants who completed the survey for the St. Leonard. As you can see in the graph at the top of the page, less than the participants who completed the survey, less of those 17% lived there less than 5 years. 33% lived there between 5 and 19 years. 20% lived in the area between 20 and 30 years, and 25% have lived in the area for 30 plus years. Approximately 5% do not live in St. Leonard. The age group of the participants are as follows. Approximately 1% were under the age of 20, 5% were between the ages of 20 and 29, 14% were between the ages of 30 and 39, 17% were between the ages of 40 and 49, 22% were between the ages of 50 and 59, and 42% were over the age of 60. When asked what are the main draws to St. Leonard Town Center, restaurants and food were cited. Local spots like the Tavern, the Happy Buddha, and casual dining and takeout and cafes. Shopping and local business such as the Dollar General, Fast Stop, liquor stores, Chesapeake Marketplace, small businesses, and antique and thrift shops. Convenience services such as gas stations, the post office, childcare, convenience stores, and ATM access. Community and small town atmosphere. Participants cited quiet, rural, and close-knit community feel of the area. And then education and work, the local schools, childcare, and employment in the surrounding areas. When asked what is the biggest challenge you've seen in the town center in the last 10 years? Limited retail and dining. There are a few grocery stores, restaurants, cafes, and there is also high business turnover. Infrastructure and growth constraints. There's no public sewer, there's limited water, there's small lots, limited parking, and there's traffic issues. Preserving a small town character. Balancing growth with rural, quiet atmosphere and concerns about overdevelopment. Appearance and maintenance. There are aging buildings, vacant storefronts, and poor landscaping. Community and zoning. Zoning restrictions, slow permitting, and keeping the area safe and family-friendly. Limited amenities and walkability. Few sidewalks, parks, and gathering spaces, and concern about pedestrian safety. Business attraction and viability. It's hard to attract retail and restaurants, and there's competition from nearby towns. And then traffic and safety. There's single access roads, congestion, and intersection and pedestrian safety concerns. When asked what you believe the biggest change you have seen in the last 10 years in the town center, participants cited businesses, the new openings of the Dollar General, Fast Stop, and other local shops, and then the relocation of Weems Liquor Store. Traffic and infrastructure. There's more congestion. The traffic circle was added and sidewalks. There have been road repairs and also lighting improvements. Aesthetics and environment. There also has been tree removal for development and landscaping in the traffic circle. Housing and population. Participants cited residential growth and then along with that, a population increase. Community and amenities, there's a loss of public events such as auctions and firehouse concerts. And in one word, what do you love about the town center? Participants cited small town, community, convenience, local feeling, rural atmosphere, history, variety, safety, potential, beautiful, farms, firehouse, slow growth, simplicity, and small businesses. When asked what are the 3 most important topics to be addressed in the master plan update, participants answered land use, environment and natural resources, and economic vitality, followed by 2 others, public safety and parks and recreation. What is one key element of the town center that you would like to see retained or enhanced? Small town charm and community feel, support of local businesses and family-owned shops, walkability and access, green spaces and parks, historic landmarks and heritage, traffic and infrastructure, essential amenities and services, safety and comfort, aesthetics and beautification, sustainability and protection of natural resources. And when asked if the town center should remain a designated town center or be zoned a rural commercial district, approximately 61 participants indicated they'd like to see it remain a town center, while 39% indicated that they would like to see it redesignated as a commercial district.
Can you restate those percentages?
Sure. Okay, 61% would like to see it remain a town center, and 39% would like to see it designated a rural commercial district. You're welcome. Okay, so exploring options moving forward based on the response to the town center and the rural commercial district. There are 4 different options we will look at depending on feedback, and that's 1, retaining the area as a town center, retaining the town center designation, but distinguishing it as a minor versus major, converting the town center to a rural commercial district, or creating a new town center style district such as a community mixed use or a village district. And the timeline for the next steps is tonight we're having the public meeting. On November 19th, we will be briefing the Planning Commission and providing them feedback from this meeting as well as any comments we receive from participants and others living in the area after the meeting. Briefing the Board of County Commissions on December 2nd in the same manner, and then holding another workshop with the community once we receive feedback and guidance on next steps from both the Planning Commission and the board. And the information that you have seen tonight, you can access this information from our Master Plan of Town Centers website, Chapter 6. You can also hit the Notify Me button on that webpage if you'd like to be notified of any change in status. You can also visit our website and look at the Planning Perspective quarterly newsletter to find out additional information. And then we do have our town center update at calvertcountymd.gov email for you to submit comments to planning and zoning anytime. All right, so with that, does anyone have any questions? And if you do, I think, could you line up and then state your name into the microphone, please?
So not just questions, any feedback at all would be
My
great.
name is Jean, and I was just wondering what this survey represents of the population of St. Leonard. How many people are in St. Leonard?
So let me go back to.
I just want to know if it's really indicative of what the people want.
Well, and you have the stats that we do use are American Community Survey. Sorry, we have a lot of animation in this. So you can see that, let's see, 562 in the census designated place. And actually those boundaries are pretty close to the boundaries of the town center. So I would say 488, but the people, not everybody that answered or completed the survey lives in St. Leonard. Let's go back to that stat.
But they would be a Calvert County resident then, in order to answer the survey?
Well, there's no prerequisite.
nothing.
I'd have to go back and look at the data, actually. I mean, I would assume, but I don't know. I would
Yeah.
like to verify before I would answer that question.
So
with certainty.
there's only, what, 500 people-ish in St. Leonard?
562.
And that includes all of St. Leonard, not just the town center area? Just,
That would be, I'm going to go back to the,
I must have missed that.
no, it's okay. Let me show you. I don't have a pointer, but I can stand. Do you see that map in the right-hand upper top corner of the slide? So that is the delineation of the census designated place. So that's the U.S. Census Bureau's census designated place, but it also closely aligns with the town center boundaries. So according to their 2023 five-year estimate data, there are 562 people living in that area.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Betty. I noticed on your town center outline the word townhomes and apartments could go into a town center. Is there any guarantees that if with the new zoning that we would not have that in our area like they're doing in Prince Frederick?
Right, well, the maximum density, allowable density is 4 units per acre inside and outside of town centers. So that's one factor that would keep the density down. And also with typically without sewer, it's hard to support multifamily housing.
So that's a no, we would not get that.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I want to go back to what the first speaker or questioner was asking about. My name's Patty Upke.
I'm sorry, one moment. Can you please state your name?
Patty Umke,
Thank you, Patty.
yes. When you said 562 people, I belong to the St. Leonard community, Long Beach community, and Calvert Beach is part of, it's like a sister community. And we have over 650 homes in Long Beach, and I don't know how many there are in Calvert Beach. So they're not even being counted in the population numbers that you're talking about. And yet, most everybody I know got a survey, and I think a lot of your responses were from the survey. And most of the people I've spoken with in my community are not in favor of a town center. And you said that the majority of people were in favor of a town center?
Okay, so let me address a few things that you said. The mailing for the postcards did hit the zip code of St. Leonard, so that would include both of the sister communities, as well as those in the town center and anyone else in the zip code. And yet, there were 488 people, and that completed the survey, and you are correct, but not all of those people were in the town center. And I'd have to go back and look at the data for sure to get a better idea, but I don't even know if we can pinpoint exactly where everybody lives.
I bet you the majority of your people that responded were in Long Beach,
Okay.
because we really communicate well with each other. Yeah, how many people are from Long Beach? How many from Calvert Beach? Calvert Beach?
How many from the town center area?
If you're asking how many people from town center that didn't get a survey,
There you go.
Now, there was some hiccups with the mailing. Were you able to access it through any other social media or somebody forwarding you the information?
no, someone called me and told me they were having a meeting tonight.
So you never got to,
I never filled one out.
The postcards didn't go out till 2 weeks after the comment period. It was like a 1-month period to get comments, and most postcards didn't even get received till 2 weeks into the comment period. So I know on my card, I said, you should extend this a little bit so that we can get the word out. But I just want to make sure that the people who are not in favor of this townhouse or town center are being counted appropriately, because I know those of us in the Long Beach community, we're concerned about traffic and people who will come down from the town center and we have private beaches in our community, and it's already a problem where people will come and try to park in our parking lots. They risk getting towed, but we're worried, at least I am, I can say for my own self, I'm worried about the looky-loos that might start off up there and say, oh, we're just going to tour down to the beaches. I have other concerns too that have to do with the water and the septic and all that kind of stuff, but I like the idea of a rural village. I think if you include it in future surveys, would you prefer a rural village or a town center? You might get a better feel for what people really want.
okay, I have a question for you. So given that we have limited ability to improve the mailings with the zip code, do you have a recommendation? Others, I would like to hear your feedback as well. You can email the town center email, or you can tell us tonight or at any time, contact planning and zoning. But what are your suggestions for better outreach? I mean, for social media, we can get to Facebook pages, but are there other means that you think would be good for spreading the word to fill in the gaps of where these zip code mailings might not be able to hit everybody?
Well, I know if you send to the LBCA, and I can leave the LBCA's email address, I'm the secretary on the board, and I make sure that anything that I think anybody would be interested in, meetings and things like that, as long as I'm told about them, I post them. And we have over 560 email addresses for people in our community.
Are you in contact with Calvert Beach as well?
No, they're a different
Okay.
homeowners. We're a civic association. They have their own civic association. We do partner on certain things like National Night Out. But the other, one of the other concerns, I'm just going to be really frank with you, is I know when Huntingtown was having its town center, politics came into play because I think it was one of the commissioners owned property that he pushed into the commercial area. And I want to make sure that anybody who's in a decision-making position with the county does not have, a conflict of interest with this town center.
Okay.
And full disclosure. Yeah.
Thank you.
So just 1 second while I do have, technology's great. Out of the 488 our survey individuals that completed the survey, it looks like all but 26 were identified as not, so that delta identified as being from St. Leonard. It's only 26 people identified as not being from St. Leonard. Now, granted, that's self-identification, so that's subjective to, but you do have at least regional input being given. And to echo Tay's point, it's a little amazing in the age of information. Getting information out is difficult because people look at, you don't have the newspaper that you had 30 years ago or whatever the case may be, and not everybody's on social media, and mailings have not always been the most reliable either. So we're open to suggestions on better ways to get information to the public, because we very much want to do that.
My name is Michael McGinnis, and I just have a sort of a basic question, and without getting too deep in the weeds, can you tell us what the difference between rural commercial and town center is? What the difference between those two, and what might be allowed in one and not in the other? Thank you.
Okay, so that is a very good question, and I would not do it justice here tonight, but we are going to follow up with a more in-depth look on that. We can post that on our website. We do have, we have prepared a table with the town center uses, permitted uses, and then the RC permitted uses, as well as a brief summarization of what's allowed in either or, and then both. So what we can do is we can make that available on the master plan of Town Center's webpage. If anyone would like a paper copy, they can always, again, contact the Department of Planning and Zoning, and we can get that mailed out to the requester.
Might you have a feel for when that might happen?
That could happen by the end of this week. No, actually, we're in preparation for being prepared. We just didn't want to get down that far into what I call the weeds tonight with the discussion. But we would love to get that information out, and if it's better to get it out sooner than later, we can get it out probably by the end of this week. Okay.
So I'm gonna not put that pressure on my staff. We have one of these each week for the next 3 weeks, so we're also doing Huntingtown and Owings, and so my suggestion is by the end of the month we'll have that out, would be, because all three of them are going to want to see something similar, and based off of feedback we may want to adjust that document just a little bit.
Yeah, I just like to state for the record that my name's Matt Keene. I owned 16 acres of town center property. I did not get a mailing. A lot of property owners do not live in St. Leonard. I feel like the mailing was kind of skewed. It was just sent to the people that had the zip code that were in the town center. I have a lot of friends that own property in the town center. They didn't get a mailing either. I'm against changing it. The whole purpose of a town center is to keep the town in the town and not spread out into the rural areas. So I just, for the record.
Hi, I'm Paul Murdoch. I currently live in Long Beach, but will be living in Calvert Beach by the end of the week. So I think there's a little confusion around, there's what you guys are saying are residents of the town center, but I'm not hearing how many people are actually residents of the zip code of St. Leonard. And St. Leonard's really kind of square, skewed and a little rolling, and there's probably a couple thousand people actually living in what is St. Leonard, and the idea of a town center is to support those people. I'm not hearing a whole lot of that tonight. I'm not hearing that.
Basically between Route 4 and the Bay.
Well, it kind of goes down to the Patuxent, but our town center is really very small and is limited in what we're going to be able to do and develop anyway. We have tried to put stuff out via social media to try to let people know about this. Patty does, for Long Beach, for our emails, I handle the Facebook, and we try to pass that along to Calvert Beach and then to the St. Leonard community page. So we're trying to get this out there, but, you know, his comment hit right on it. We're having a discussion and a comment tonight, and we honestly don't know what the differences are. So it would really help if we have that, and then we can have really a discussion about, you know, what would be a detraction from changing it. No one really likes change. Or is it going to better serve the people in St. Leonard? And it's a very limited spot that what you have right now. I mean, we aren't even in St. Leonard, you know, the business district, to have this conversation because of how limited the business district is. So what are we going to do? Are we going to make some improvements? Are we going to put in sewer? Are we going to do some things to make it more viable for businesses? Or are we just going to kind of stay stagnant and we're just going to be considered one of these minor things that are just forgotten because for whatever reason we don't have some pool? So, I mean, that's a question to you guys. You know, how do you explain these kind of things, and how do you expect us to really give good feedback if we don't even know what the distinctions are between the two? So I really hope you guys get that. I understand your pressures of all this, and, you know, you're going to have these meetings, and, you know, I've pestered you, and you're going to have somebody come out to one of our meetings this week, you know, to talk to us. But having that, you guys are kind of putting the cart before the horse here, asking for feedback when you can't tell us what we're giving feedback on. So just my 2 cents.
Okay, and I would like to address one of your comments. We did mail out to 2,800 zip code addresses in St. Leonard. So the way it works is we had a third-party contractor vendor work with the postal office, and the postal office has their routes, and it's in the St. Leonard zip code, and so it's called direct mail access.
I think it's every door direct mail or something similar to that. It's basically hits every box in that zip code, which is for individuals that have land that don't have a mailbox or some type of postal box there. That's the caveat, isn't it? You're not going to get it if you don't have that box. And so that's how come individuals like Mr. Keene did not get that mailer.
I mean, my suggestion for that going forward is you cross-reference between where you're sending the tax bill.
Yeah.
The property's owned there, you look at where the tax bill goes. I mean, if you want to find us for money, you know how to find us for money. So you can find us.
My name's Donnie McCready. I live in the town center area, in where the farms are. And my only question really is, can you tell us the difference of how it will affect those of us who are in the town center now if it were to go to rural commercial? And my understanding was with the rural commercial is if you lived, say, down on Long Beach Road or over on Perrin Road or anything, and you wanted to open up a small business, that you could. But how would that affect now, the difference between rural commercial and current town center property owners? That's what I'd like to hear a little bit about, if you can answer that tonight.
So what I can say, and I think I've said this in front of the BOCC and in front of the Planning Commission, is I think the goal is to not create a bunch of non-conforming businesses. That's basically, we're not going to take away a use that somebody is currently using. So that would be making adjustments to what is allowed in a rural commercial area, if that is indeed the case, which I think is why the other 2 options on that list of options we had there are discussions about something similar to a minor major designation that my understanding was the case prior to 2020, or maybe even consideration of a different type of district, like a village district, which is something we don't have, so that it would be a new category. So the whole idea of rural commercial versus town center is to really set the playing field of what the range of options are. There's a whole lot of things in the middle that I think we can have discussions on, and the reason why we can't answer specifics is because we don't have it. That is what the public input part is for, is to get that feedback on what do you want to see in there, so that we can then design the district around, or design that area around what is preferred and what is reasonable within, and after talking with agencies, talking with the public. So it is a very much, Mr. Murdoch said a cart before the horse. I would say maybe a chicken or egg situation where you've got to kind of have one conversation and then start having a different conversation and then come back with ideas. And so it's a lot like tennis. This is going to be a series of back and forth. And right now we're providing the ball to y'all, and so please don't throw balls at us. But you can provide that feedback back is what I'm getting to. So I don't know if that 100% answered your question, but I think the goal is to not create a bunch of non-conforming uses and take a bunch of things away, so to speak, from people that are currently utilizing their property in ways they've done for generations.
I'd also like to add, I'm going to bring this back. Up here we have the intent of the town center. Then we have the intent of the rural commercial zoning district. This was lifted from our zoning ordinance, the rural commercial zoning district. And the intent of the town center was taken from our comprehensive plan. So this gives you a general overview. It does give you some generalizations about the differences. But again, when you look at the town center, you have a mix of houses, a mix of housing types. You have, sure, okay. A town center is designated to be a mini town for a community. It combines different types of buildings and activities in one walkable area, such as shops, restaurants, offices, apartments, or townhouses, parks, trails, and public spaces. The goal is to strengthen the local economy by bringing jobs and businesses closer to where people live. It is also intended to reduce traffic, since people can walk, bike, or take public transportation instead of always driving. Town centers are where most new growth is expected to occur, so they are provided with quality roads, water and sewer services, high-speed internet, and inviting public spaces such as town squares or indoor recreation centers. Each town center has its own master plan that guides how it should develop to reflect the community's vision. The intent of the rural commercial zoning district. It covers businesses located outside of the town center, usually along country roads. These may include small stores, local shops, or services that have operated for decades, such as roadside markets, repair shops, or local diners. They are important because they provide goods and services to residents in rural areas without requiring long drives into town. Regulations for rural commercial areas are designed to keep these businesses small scale, low key, and consistent with the rural character, ensuring they do not develop into large shopping centers that could compete with town centers.
No, but I never read that when I answered the survey. If I had, I would not have answered.
This was included, this is actually a snapshot of the survey question. Right, and maybe we need to consider revisiting a survey for you all. So we'll put that on the plate to consider as well, just based on your feedback tonight.
And ma'am, you've got some great points. I want everybody to be able to hear them, so if we can make sure to get to Mike for. But you have completely valid points. Is why I'm saying I think everybody would like the opportunity to hear it. It's okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Betty Carrico. Is there a time frame from this point to execution and completion of this master plan plus making it a master plan and building and whatever you're going to do?
The short answer, no.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Dan Sprayberry. Most of my questions are related to the difference between the two. I thought that's what we were going to be talking about tonight, so I had questions kind of for that. But just some things I just want to put on the out there so we can talk about it at a future date. Does it affect the current status of businesses that exist now? Like, is the rules going to change for what they can do? And mostly, what are the restrictions going to be on what types and size of businesses can be put in this area? Because I don't want to see like storage units from Fast Stop all the way down to Route 4, you know what I mean? And I don't want to incentivize people with a bunch of money to come in here and buy up land to, put storage units or put, a Chili's or a McDonald's, you know what I mean, down here. And the other one is, does this affect state funds for St. Leonard? Like, do we lose funding for certain things like roads and sidewalks because it's not a town center? Do we gain additional funding if it's rural commercial? What does that look like? So that's mostly what I got.
Okay, state funds are tied to priority funding areas. So if I can't access the priority funding area map, but I'd have to see where the priority funding area map overlaps with the town center. They often overlap quite considerably, the town centers and the priority funding areas, but that is the main nexus between, if you have that designation, then that's where the state focuses and targets its investment dollars.
So that sounds like we would potentially lose state funding if we lose the town center designation, right?
No, because what I'm talking about is the priority funding area. So that is a state and county dual designated designation. So the county, based on criteria, the county offers up the areas that meet that, and then the state approves it. And at this point, do you have the map? Okay. Now we can look that up, and we can put the map on the website and make a comparison so that you all can see that. But it is tied to the priority funding area.
Okay.
So those are two different designations.
Okay. Not related though.
Hi, Maria Bueller of St. Leonard. I think that there's a lot of confusion with the definitions, with the lack thereof. The two that you just read really read like the difference between the major town center and the minor town center, which is, what St. Leonard has always been. I think that when you start talking about changing things, changing districts, changing uses, you create a lot of uncertainty and anxiety about what's going to happen, what's going away, what's coming. But the reality is we could just leave St. Leonard the way it is. And I think that a lot of people just want to leave it alone. Thank you.
So my name is Pam Steinley. I live in Long Beach. And I kind of where you started this evening was with the statement, this was Kat, I think, in the beginning of the PowerPoint, just that the vision will continue to be. And whose vision is this? I guess I'm not clear on. I haven't lived here more than 10 years, so I don't know whose vision this was 10 years ago. And I also would like to add to that since there is an apparent third option of a village district, what would, even just a rough idea, what does that mean? How does that respond to? Is that going the other side of, I guess, the current is rural? Are we currently considered a rural commercial district? Is that correct?
Okay, so at this point, all the town centers in the county are designated town centers. I think that for the rural village, the intent would be versus the town center, or the rural village or the minor town center versus the town center, the major town center. Now, this is all conceptual. Really, the differences are that the water and sewer, okay? So there is public sentiment against one or the other or both. And so
But the water and the sewer would be primarily to support new development, is that correct?
New development, yes. And so the intent of the town, The intent of the town center is to provide infrastructure and to focus commercial and housing development. And when you need the water and sewer to fulfill that intent over the long term, okay? And so when you have public sentiment that keeps not wanting to see that, then you want to really consider, is this planning concept of the town center appropriate for this area? Or do we need to redefine it, go back to major and minor, or create a rural village district? And highly preliminarily speaking, and I hope Jason doesn't mind that I say this, but it doesn't appear to be much of a difference between a rural village or a minor town center when we're looking at this very firsthand. And again, it goes back to water and sewer, either or both. Also, if you don't have that infrastructure, you can't support like an indoor or a larger community center because you're going to need that to support the use of it. And then if you also aren't going to have improved traffic infrastructure, then you can't have a lot of people coming in and out. So there's little nuances that equate to big deal in either or. So when we come back out and we discuss these differences, which will be with the Planning Commission and the BOCC probably in November sometime, that's our plan, and that's what was up on this slide, is that we will hash that out a little bit and then get feedback. But this is all preliminary, and these are our initial thoughts, but nothing is set in stone.
So I just want to, I mean, as a person who came to this community relatively recently, I came here because there aren't a lot of people coming in and out. So I think maybe this community, and that's valued here, I guess I should say in addition, obviously this community, this isn't the vision of the people who are here, is that correct?
The 2013, I'm going to go off of the 2013 master plan.
Okay.
So the overall public sentiment was there was a need for water system improvement, for water pressure, and then water reserve. But at the time, people acknowledged that there needs to be sewer, but they didn't want any of the development that was associated with that sewer to come along. So that's the wording in the plan.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Larry Foreman, Chesapeake Auction House and Marketplace. Is there a difference between town center major and minor? That if you're a major town center or you're a minor town center, is there a difference?
From how it's been described in the different comprehensive plans over the years, the major is more countywide, regional services are provided. Minor would be local, just local services provided.
Local, what do you mean by local services? And the reason I'm asking is because we're talking about a change. And young lady, you brought that up, and you make changes and you think everything is fine and changes, and all of a sudden change turns into a change, and we come back here again in another 5 years and then we don't like what the change was. I think our town center is extremely good, and I think one of the things that we need to talk about is what you were talking about. What are your needs? And I think if you talk small, and we have small businesses, just like we did back when you had Truman Lumber Company and Truman Gas Company. They were the largest in Southern Maryland, but they were still small. And we have small businesses today, and we want small businesses. And I just wonder, when they put up that dollar store, how many people didn't like the dollar store, but I wonder how many people are in it every other week. And every other day. So maybe we're going to meet the needs of people here that didn't want the big, but want the small, like an extra or 2 restaurants or some other small businesses that that people are going to come to and say, gee whiz, I didn't want to go all the way to Prince Frederick, or I didn't want to go here, but I have it right here. And we keep our roads clear. So there's a lot of things that need to be talked about. And I'm just hoping that when we talk about change, that maybe change is not what we need, but we need to do a better job with whom we are today in the town center and work around people that have come to this county for specific reasons. They didn't come here for high rise. They came here for small. So let's give them small. You know, last time we talked about town centers, we were going to do a lot of different things in the town centers. I just wonder how many of those things we're not doing that could have affected positively the things that we would have been here today and say, we're doing a good job. Maybe we don't need to talk about change. Let's get better with who we are and what we have. Thank you.
He just said a lot of what I was going to say, but I wanted to just say, St. Leonard is basically...
Can you please state your name?
Oh, Michelle Jones. Like I was saying, he said a lot of what I was thinking. St. Leonard is basically a small beach fishing town. And a lot of us did move here because it is a small fishing town. And when we look at development, a lot of my friends, people I know, we just want to improve what we have already. We're not looking for building infrastructure, the whole big kit and caboodle. I know I was part of, 15 or 10 years ago, fighting against getting the sewers put in, basically to stop the plans that they had to build up. They were talking about all kinds of businesses and large businesses and apartments and this and that. So the best way to stop it was to stop the sewer system. And we worked really hard and it worked. And most of us love our little town center that we have. It's a close-knit community. There's a lot of people who live in St. Leonard who live on the other side of Route 4. They don't get affected by what the people on this side get affected by. Another thing we were always promised was a transportation assessment that we've never gotten. I worked at the health department, went to a lot of emergency management meetings and stuff like that, and I would always bring up, what if there's a problem? Evacuation routes. We have one road. They always talked about maybe another access road out. That was never addressed, but you always hear about another building plan, but they never address that at all, because if there ever is an emergency, you're gonna have, bottleneck. Nobody's going anywhere, and everybody will be trapped. So that's always a concern too with roads and transportation. And as far as public transportation, we have our little rural bus transportation system in Calvert County. That's not gonna happen. But that's basically what I want to say. We're a little town. Everybody I talk to, they love it. But we'd like to see it take our town, spruce it up a little bit. Some bit more small businesses, we're fine with that. Some sitting areas, whatever. But most of us came here because we love it. We don't want to end up like Lusby. Lusby turned into a disaster of strip malls. And when I moved down here, none of that was there. Even in Prince Frederick, where they have Fox One Run, they just started building at that time. Now you have crap everywhere. So we would like to at least maintain our little town, and I can hop in a car in 10 minutes and be in Lesby or Prince Frederick and get anything else that I can't get around here, which I don't have to do too often because we're pretty well set. That's basically it.
I just want to mention one thing. 99% of the towns that are in St. Leonard are on half acre to an acre lot.
Sure, that'll work perfect. Larry Lamson, what is the residential density difference between the town center and the rural commercial?
The rural commercial, it's my understanding there is no housing in the rural commercial. So the intent of the rural commercial districts were, when the town centers were first designated, there were some areas that were adjacent to the town centers that had commercial businesses. And because they weren't included in the town centers, the rural commercial district was created.
So if you have rural commercial, you cannot build on it? Is that what you're telling me?
With the permitted uses, you could build on it. I don't.
I'll give you a specific.
No
If you-
expansion,
if you
I
have
think,
If you
is
have
the
20
rule.
acres and you want to give 2 acres to your son or daughter, can you do that in rural commercial?
To develop it how?
Right, to have 2 lots and put 2 houses on 20 acres. It's not,
For residential under rural commercial, you would not be able to do that.
okay. And what's the time limit or time frame for sewer and water? I mean, you have some projection?
Okay, so
You've got-
for St. Leonard, it is not planned, sewer is not planned. This year, a water distribution project, our water system project was initiated, and I think it's underway, it might even be done, right? So it was to improve the public system, okay, because there's a private system, there's a public system in the area. So it's to improve the public system so that the fire department had adequate fire suppression, all right? And then it was also for water distribution pressure, and then also for reserves. And this is for the public.
So without sewer, it contains the ability to end up like like Prince Frederick. If you don't have a sewer system, you can't have multifamily homes.
That's correct.
Okay, and do you have, is it 20 years away? You must have some plan.
So what we have is a water and sewerage plan, okay? The Department of Public Works is in charge of managing that plan, and they work with the Maryland Department of Planning to update that plan. They're in the process of updating that plan right now. To my knowledge, there are no plans for sewer service in St. Leonard. This plan is to be updated, I believe, every 10 years. But I think it's a longer range plan, just like the comprehensive plan. So,
Okay, that answers it.
okay.
I just wanted to, Dan Sprayberry again, just a clarification. So with the rural commercial, you can't build housing. You can only build businesses, right? So if they redesignate what is currently the town center as rural commercial, that means you couldn't, if you wanted to knock down a house and rebuild a house on that does that get grandfathered in so that it can still get to be residential? Or if you knock the house down, then now it's only commercial?
Well, I can't really answer that question right now. We would have to look at because in the town center, there are residential uses there. So what would happen there is we would look to see, does it need to be designated or zoned a residential zoning district? And then the rural commercial. That's conceptually how we would look at it.
Because my concern there would be, I come in with a big bag of money and buy a bunch of houses right in St. Leonard, knock them down and build a Walmart on top of it. You know what I mean? Like, that's theoretically something that someone could do, right?
We'd have to look at the permitted uses table in the rural commercial to see if something like a Walmart
I'm being,
I know,
superfluous or
I
whatever, but I'm
know.
just saying that theoretically, if I had $1 billion, I could come in and level houses and build whatever I want, as long as it falls into this rubric, right? Potentially preying on somebody who maybe is having a rough time and could come into a big bag of money for their house, right?
Potentially, but like I said, we would analyze the current uses and most likely zone the residential uses residential, because as Jason said, we do not want to establish a bunch of non-conforming uses. So the rural commercial zoning district would not apply to all of the uses in the town center. It would apply to the commercial uses theoretically.
Okay. And so you're going to have that rubric or that chart within the next couple weeks? So I feel
By
like we
the
should do
end
this
of the
again.
month.
But I think we should do this again, like once we have it written in front of us.
That is our intent. So we would like to go and talk to the board and the planning commission with all this information and all the feedback we get tonight. We also have 2 other meetings in Huntingtown and Owings. So we'd like to go talk to them about all of these, all the feedback, and then the different options, and then the breakdown. And I'm going to pass it over to Jason because his microphone's up.
And I think you can see that on our proposed timeline where it says St. Leonard Public Workshop.
Okay.
We don't have a date on that. I'm going to tell you we're probably not doing it in December because people have other priorities in December, so it will probably be right after the first of the year before we come back to a setting like this. But to echo a little bit of what Tay says, if there was substantial direction given to go the rural commercial route, you would almost have a mix of rural commercial and residential districts in that area so that you're not creating a bunch of non-conforming uses. But I do want to go back a little bit to a question that was asked earlier. Did you have
I have
anything?
one more
Okay,
thing.
go ahead.
And then my question is, who is the final decider on this? And do we as the residents have any kind of voting or any input beyond us just talking here and filling out a survey?
Okay, so when you update the master plan, we have to go through a public participation process. So this is, as Jason said, like 1A of a series of public meetings that we will have, and possibly the first survey that we'll have, most likely. So the Planning Commission, at the end, we're going to have several meetings going back and forth. We're going to have also a final draft, a preliminary draft, a final draft. It'll be up on the website throughout this whole entire process, which again takes many, many months. And we will bring it to the Planning Commission after we present it to you all, get your comments, incorporate, you know, and work with you, bring it to the Planning Commission, and they will need to find it consistent with our comprehensive plan through a public hearing. Okay, so that goes through, that gives you all another opportunity to comment. And sorry, let me backtrack. Before that public hearing, we have to send it out for a 60-day review for comments for departments, the state, adjoining jurisdictions, the Tri-County Council, and then the public at large. So you'll get a chance to comment there, as well as the previous public meetings, the 60-day review, then at the public hearing for the Planning Commission, where they find it consistent with the Calvert County Comprehensive Plan, making that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. They have to have a public hearing. And again, there is another comment period for the public to make comments.
My question is, though, are they beholden to what we say, or can you make the decision on your own, despite, so we want to keep our current designation at 61% or whatever the number was. If that stays true all the way up to the end of this process, is there anything preventing you from just saying, no, it's rural commercial, sorry, too bad?
Right. Well, we do our best to, yes, this is supposed to be a back and forth, and so, yes, we would take public sentiment and try to fold it into the plan the best we can. I can't speak for exactly what could happen, but that's the intent of the process. And that's what staff would aim for, to make sure that the public, the departments, the adjoining jurisdictions, all of their comments are best represented in that draft plan for consideration by the Planning Commission and the board.
Okay, so, but the answer is no. Like, we can't, there's nothing that we could, like, stew to be like, the people who live here don't want this.
Well,
if they say
it's not a vote by ballot.
Okay, yeah, that's my question.
It's a Planning Commission recommendation.
It is not our decision.
Correct. It's a Planning Commission recommendation, and the BOCC makes the decision.
Okay.
There's
Thank you.
quite a few series of public input, but that's the process.
One more question that we always ask and never get an answer to. Why is this forced by the state, the county? Why is this even going on?
So I will answer that.
Just want to know why, in the first place, are we going through this?
I will answer that to the best of my ability, so maybe I can give you some clarity. We're required to have a comprehensive plan by state law. We're required to have it. The last one was done in 2019. There were some updates a few years after that. And after we do that, this county has chosen, we don't have to have town center master plans or master plans of town centers. That is a Calvert County thing. It is probably a good idea to have plans on what you want to do. Now, best made plans, they don't always turn out the way you should. And I think that's where I would like to see plans that are maybe more realistic than maybe have been done in the past, and more feedback and interaction with the public than maybe has been done in the past. So that's kind of why we changed the system a little bit about earlier this year to kind of set this current chapter system in place. But I will go back to the question that we had earlier about whose vision and why. Well, it's because this is set out in the comprehensive plan that this is a town center and here are the proposed boundaries for the town center. And then we have to come, because there's 7 of them, we have to come update plans. And some of them, the St. Leonard plan was updated, what, 2013? Owings was updated the last time substantially in the Reagan administration. So it's been a few years. A lot has changed and some hasn't changed. But I think there needs to be plans that are realistic and plans that don't just sit on a shelf and say, isn't that nice, we have this plan over here, but are actually workable plans and plans that have a lot of community input. And I think that's the goal. And hopefully we'll take that public feedback as part of that decision-making process. And I think I know that's what the BOCC wants to do. They actually asked us to host this meeting ahead of when we had originally planned because they wanted that public feedback as we're going through this process. They directed staff to do, this is our job, so that this is what they assign us to do. And I would bet with some confidence that they are following or watching, and they will be asking me about it tomorrow morning. Sir.
My name is Alan Delaney. I've been here for 32 years. And I remember very well, about 16, 17 years ago, there was a comprehensive, whatever, plan for Prince Frederick. And it was held at Calvert Pines. That was standing room only that night. I remember that very well. Not one person in that room wanted to expand the Prince Frederick master plan, not one. But yet the commissioners rammed it down our throats, and there it went, got done anyway. All I know is when I hear master plans or whatever these plans are, all I know is more trees get torn down, more houses get built, more congestion, more traffic, and right up in Prince Frederick, yet there's another traffic light around Route 4. And just off the top of my head, I'm just wondering, what's the capacity right now of the sewer systems in this county? Any idea?
So I cannot answer that question, and because the water and sewerage plan is being updated at this point in time, that would be the most up-to-date information. You can look at this information to find out. But I would like to say during development review, anything that happens, it gets reviewed. The proposal gets reviewed for adequate capacity of water and sewer.
Well, I'm just wondering when they're going to have to build another sewage treatment plant, that's all.
Okay.
Because I see that coming.
I can't answer that question, but if you would like follow-up to your statement and your question, I can follow up with you.
I can call up county. I'll call up the county public works.
Okay.
See if they answer it. And if I don't, and your name again, I'm sorry?
Tay, T-A-Y, last name is Harris.
Tay Harris, okay.
Yes.
All I know is when I see these master plans coming out, it just bothers me. Just leave it alone, just the way it is. Thank you.
Michael McGinnis again. I'm sorry. Shall I go ahead? Okay, thank you. I don't have to tell you folks this, but I think everyone in the audience needs to keep in mind, because so many of us are concerned about development. I'll just leave it at that. Infrastructure is critical in development. Again, you folks all know this very well. What am I talking about? Water and septic. Big issues in Calvert County. Always have been. No one's going to build a fill-in-the-blank in St. Leonard unless they can deal with the well, water, and septic. The dollar store had a big, they put out a lot of effort in dealing with their septic situation, and the septic system they ended up putting in is pretty doggone advanced and seems to be working very well, and I say good for them. However, before any development is going to take place, these issues have to be addressed. And right now, St. Leonard is struggling with the water issue that I'm going to call a distribution center. I'm probably not using the right nomenclature, but it's being built out on St. Leonard Road past the elementary school, is in an effort to deal with the fire department's concern about water pressure and water volume. And that may or may not be a sort of a last-ditch effort to deal with the water pressure and volume issues that the fire department has before major work has to be done with the water distribution system in St. Leonard. So everybody in the room needs to keep in mind that those water and septic are critical issues with regard to development. They must be dealt with first. They will be dealt with first, or they would be dealt with first. That's been the history in Calvert County, because those two issues, water and septic, are so critical in our county. A lot of people here are worried, they're exaggerating, using examples of Walmart and so forth. But before anything like that could ever be built anywhere near St. Leonard, these two issues I just mentioned would have to be dealt with. And this is not meant as a criticism of anything or anyone, but I think it's important that we all keep that in mind, because if you're against development of any kind, and that's fine, that's your opinion, you're certainly entitled to it, but you have to remember that before that development you're concerned about takes place, this water and septic issue will have to be dealt with first. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Crystal Hill. I am a lifelong resident of St. Leonard. In fact, I live in my grandmother's house, and my daughter lives in my great-grandmother's house, so I am very vested in what you are doing. What I want to do for your feedback is, I'm leaving here tonight, and I don't know any more than I did walking in. I feel like your presentation wasn't beneficial to us. I highly recommend, I'm a teacher, that you start out with the definitions on a screen that is readable, and then you give us what your point is, like what is your goal, so that we understand better, because I still don't know what is going to happen to the acreage that I have in my town center that I live in. And I just think that you have 2 more weeks of presentations that you need to be more clear and give us definitions. And I also want to say that I feel like you all need to travel outside of Calvert County and go to Leonardtown or the Eastern Shore and look up towns that have charm and cute little restaurants, and maybe you can bring that back here, because the town centers that you have expanded on upon now are not it.
Good evening. I'm Bill Kanishi. I own a company called Midshore Management. We manage and rent properties. We happen to own a strip center in St. Leonard. I think everybody here would love, me included, to see the town center upgraded. What I'm here tonight is possibly you want to keep it stagnant by not allowing sewage in the future. In the business I'm in, the first question a renter has is, what is the availability of water and sewer. You take away this right, and everyone in this room gets hurt. It may not feel it today, but their children will. And down the road, St. Leonard will be a stagnant, nowhere to go, small strip center. I highly recommend that you reconsider what you're thinking about doing. My understanding from hearing you, the major differences between your two, whether it's rural commercial or a town center, is water and sewer. If I'm incorrect, please let me know now. And I do not understand why anyone in this room would want to change the status and why you need to do it if it's no other reason than to do away with the sewer system in the future. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to address that. We're not here to make a decision either way. We're informing you all that in the 2013 master plan update, the sentiment was that the public input sewer is needed, but nobody wanted to deal with the development that's associated with sewer infrastructure. We are here tonight to get public input from you, also to talk about the survey results that asks that question. We don't have a preference either way. Again, it is here to get public input towards the future vision for the town center.
Hi, my name is Marisa. Clarification. The St. Leonard Town Center is currently a town center. So the description that you had on page 16 about the town center is what we have right now and what we've had since 2013. Is that correct? Like if we do no changes whatsoever, we get the shops, the restaurants, the offices, the apartments, the townhouses, the parks, trails, public spaces. That is our definition of what we are today.
So that's the intent, that's what the zoning would allow, but with the planned sewer in the area, as we discussed, there is none at this point. That would not allow for this area to reach that full vision.
So we are defined as a town center, but we can't actually structurally enact being a town center. So it really is kind of meaningless that we're even called a town center.
Well, it's not meaningless, but this goes back to what Jason Brinkley, our director, said, is that we're trying to really reflect the planning that goes on within these town centers and within comprehensive plan to match what's on the ground, and that is and what is public sentiment influences what we're putting on the ground. So we're not saying we want this area to remain a town center, not remain a town center. It is, what do you all see for the vision? And we've heard a mix of sentiment here again tonight. Some people don't want any change. Some people would like to see improvements, but again, we do need, depending upon those improvements, you will need to see some type of sewer
upgrades, right.
septic system happening. So it's complicated, but I do feel like everybody wants the town center to be at least improved. So what does that really mean? And it seems like the answers range. Some people want to see benches improved, streetscapes. Some people want to see maybe some shops and some restaurants. But again, you can't. That's not as easy to attract those types of developments if there's not sometimes water and sewer infrastructure there. It's a chicken and the egg. Now, the Dollar General was able to come in and they could afford to put in a septic system that served that particular establishment. So if there are other private investors that want to open up a restaurant, are they attracted here and can they afford the same thing?
Right, so if we want a vital town center flourishing, some people said here tonight, little shops, small businesses, local owned businesses, we need to address the sewer issue so that those groups can come in, because while people here say they like Dollar General, that is a big business. That is not a small business. So there are very few small businesses in the town center. I think we really need to be thinking about what do we need to do to the infrastructure to make the town center a flourishing, vital place that it sounds like folks here want it to be, a place that has small business, small restaurants, where you can walk up and down the sidewalk just a little here and there to get from places as opposed to having to park in one store and then leave. I think we should be inviting those conversations to have upgrades in sewer and water so that we can have even the small businesses. Because the small businesses that we want to attract cannot afford to do what Dollar General did. So all we're going to do is attract more Dollar Generals because those are the folks that have the money to have the infrastructure, right? That's it.
Evening. Mark Pearson, been in the county 45 years. First, I'm not sure if you all are responsible for it, but I appreciate you coming in and fixing the sidewalks in St. Leonard so our people with disabilities can get up and down the road. Finally, you got rid of the trees that tear everybody's brand new motorhome, anything over 7 feet tall, it tears them up. Anybody that has a brand new motorhome wants to drive it down the road, don't go through St. Leonard. You can now though, because you don't have the trees. Nobody took care of them. But the owners in St. Leonard had to clean up the mess they left all the time. County didn't. Actually, they come through and trim and just leave it there. Don't even take away their trimmings. As Mr. Bueller mentioned earlier, everybody in St. Leonard, most of the places in the town center are on small lots. At some point in time, their septic is going to go. Does anybody know why there's no tables at Happy Buddha? They don't have a sewer. They don't have the septic for it. Dollar General, they put up all this money. Do they even have a public restroom? No, 7 employees. That's what all that money was that they used for their septic system. 7 employees to go to the bathroom. At some point in time, your septic is going to go bad. We can't survive in St. Leonard without sewer. Thank you.
My name's Dave Kalins. I'm active in Long Beach's Community Association. I've been asked, I get a lot of questions from people about what's going on in St. Leonard, and I don't often have answers. I don't know that I'm really going to have any answers to give them with regards to this meeting, other than to urge them to go online and look at this presentation and follow up on that. But while you're here, in an effort to be transparent, I'd like 2 questions, if you can maybe answer them. We watched 6 or 8 years ago a sidewalk be built from where Spot, the donation place is, and the liquor store, up to a court, which has about 6 or 8 houses on it. I used to call it the sidewalk to nowhere, because I was trying to figure out why are we spending county money to build a sidewalk to nowhere to service 8 homes. And then most recently, I'm getting questions about what is this parking lot going on in the middle of St. Leonard? So now we have this beautiful new parking lot right in the middle of St. Leonard that'll probably fit 50 or 60 cars. I heard somebody say it was for overflow parking, but what are we overflowing from? So, I'd like to find some sort of an answer. If you don't have it tonight, maybe you can get back to us on it so I can tell them what is the parking lot for? Why are we spending county money to put a parking lot? And a lot of people think that is the county's effort to begin the process of reforming the town center by starting with the parking lot so they have somewhere to put all these people for those neat little shops and stores and everything else that has gone in without any input from the community. Obviously you can't ask us to approve every construction job that goes on in the county, but and so you have a plan for construction, but nobody has been able to answer that question satisfactorily to me. Why do we have a parking lot right in the middle of St. Leonard now? So, thank you.
So on the parking lot, the best answer I can give you is I literally texted the Director of Public Works to ask him this question because it was asked right before we began, and his response is to improve public parking for the town and for Dow House, the community center. So that's the reason from the text message that he sent to me just a little bit ago.
Yeah, it's a little community center right there on the main strip. I didn't know of it till Bueller's told me about it today. I had no clue we had a community center there. Yeah. Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea it was there. So I'm up here again, different hat on. So I think a lot of people are afraid that we're going to turn into a Lesby or a Prince Frederick. Our footprint, correct me if I'm wrong, is so much smaller with our town center to what Prince Frederick has and what Lesby has. We are very limited by what's defined currently as where we can build these things. And to other people's point tonight, nobody wants to deal with septic. We're scared of bringing sewer in because of what massive development might follow. But you can certainly build a system that could allow X of other businesses coming in, but not 1,200, 1,500, 3,600 new homes. I think you need to communicate that a little easier to people that, hey, the plan here is not to turn St. Leonard into a Lesby, into a Prince Frederick. We don't have the footprint currently to do that. And our infrastructure is already limited by the current businesses and housing. We're not going to turn this into a 4-lane road. It's a 2-lane road. That's probably all it's ever going to be. But for water and sewer, to the other fellows, I serve on the Beaches Water Company. That's the private water company that serves a lot of Long Beach, a little bit of Calvert Beach, and some other areas. Water's a precious commodity. You can't go 3 days without it. And we don't have a really good aquifer fill here. Our aquifer gets filled at the entry point all the way up in Annapolis because of all the clays and silts and sands that are here. So it's always been a bedroom community. Now people are living here full time. There's more of a draw on the water table. In the 70s, you put in the nuclear power plant. That's drawing on our water table. No one wants to talk about it. You're going to put in a data center. It's going to happen. Your report of the state of the county was, I don't know, 27 pages, 32 pages. The last 7 was basically an advertisement for how good we're going to be for a data center. We're getting it because Virginia said no. That's going to be a big draw on our water. That's another thing that's going to be a problem for us. And I know, okay, technically it's in Lesby. We can throw a rock and hit Flag Ponds. That's Lesby. And this is going to be right on the other side. So I want to bring that up for tonight when we're talking about water and sewer. We're going to have something else in here really big, sucking a lot of water out of our water table. So that's something to think of long term. And is it St. Leonard? No. But it's right outside. And we're going to deal way more than that than the people living in a town center in Lesby. So I know that's not the scope of this tonight, but this water use, potential sewer that is going to have to happen. These systems are designed for 50 years, and we're going on 80. They're going to fail, and they probably are failing. So it needs to get addressed. But I think if you address it and assuage people's fears about the scope of how many things could put in here with the current footprint, I think that's going to go a long way to helping people come to terms with what St. Leonard could be, and we're limited. We're limited with our footprint. So I just think if there's a better way to show potentially what we could do here, because we're all envisioning something horrible, for, Waldorf and everything else that people keep throwing up. I think, I don't want to say the onus is on you guys. The onus is on you guys to kind of make us feel a little more comfortable with what is this potentially going to look like. And you can't control what businesses come in here. We're all not thrilled with all that, what comes in and everything, but we need to get something in here to make this a little bit more than what it currently has. So that's my thoughts on that.
So Paul, I'm going to take your cue on making you feel maybe a little more comfortable.
Please.
We've talked a lot tonight about what is the right designation for St. Leonard, and I know that was on the survey, and that's generated a lot of the conversation. And I know some people may have came here seeking answers when really it's the purpose of tonight is to have this community conversation, to hear what the concerns are, the very concerns that were raised here tonight. So from our standpoint, that's great to hear these concerns, because this is exactly what we need at this point in the game. Like I said, we're at like 1A, maybe 1B, on a multi-10, 12-step process that will take months. So the question was asked, why change? And I think the master plan for St. Leonard was in 2013, and then at that time there was a designation between minor town centers and major town centers, and that designation, largely my understanding was those that are served by public water and sewer versus those that are not. So to answer the question I know that was asked over here earlier about which town centers had sewer, the answer is Prince Frederick, Lusby, Solomons, and then there is a private system in Dunkirk. So the 3 town centers that we're having these meetings on are town centers that are not served by public sewer of any. If you've got better answers, Tace, tell me to be quiet.
No, he's always right. So, but the other thing is that it's multifamily housing. So, for example, Dunkirk has private septic up in the town center, but it was actually designated a minor town center because it didn't have public water and sewer, and it didn't allow multifamily housing.
So, and I think that's a good point to continue on this conversation on. In 2019, when the new comprehensive plan, the document that's the guiding document for county, there was no distinction between major and minor town centers. It was simply town centers. And that's where I think you do get the fear, and we've heard it and we've heard it to a certain extent tonight, that you don't want St. Leonard to be Lusby, or you don't want St. Leonard to be Prince Frederick. And I know the practical applications, but if you just see town center, you may not know or think that that could seem to some that is a very possible avenue when there's practical considerations why it's not. And so I think that's one of the questions of the 4, and we focus a lot on rural commercial tonight, but there's other options, such as, and I think was brought up a few times, that going back to a minor and major designation being one that would help have that distinguishing feature between, and then we can, as we develop these, okay, what is your difference? How do you actually define? Where is that line drawn? Because in all practical reality, there is a difference, zoning and comprehensive plan and everything aside, between St. Leonard and Prince Frederick. Those are not the same thing. Anybody that's driven through either one can tell you that. Where do we draw that line? How do we define that is the question that we're trying to have that conversation as a community to help answer as we develop these plans forward, because there is a difference. And do we need to distinguish? If so, where and how do we distinguish so that we can maintain the community that everybody loves, but also develop a plan to help make it a little better by improving sidewalks, by attracting small businesses that are maybe not your corporate chains. What can we do both from a planning and zoning, but also from an economic development standpoint over the next 10 years to make that happen? And I know that there is no timeline for developing this plan, and that's by design so that we can continue this conversation. Hopefully it happens a little quicker than Prince Frederick, that's been worked on for about 5 years now. But it's a months-long thing. So if you are just now getting involved in the conversation, you're on that 1A step. And if you've got friends or neighbors or whatever that want to be involved as well, there's plenty of time to speak up and make your voices heard, because I can tell you the commissioners want to hear it, and they have told me that multiple times. So they want to hear this feedback as we're going through and making our suggestions and recommendations to the Planning Commission and to the BOCC over the next several months. We can bring you a mic if that helps.
What each town center is already, so we have examples of what to go by.
Yeah.
And we need those papers in front of us, each of us at these meetings.
Yeah.
And if they have sewer, if they have septic.
Just what the differences between each are and what they're.
Oh, I'm done.
We heard your point. Thank you. So speaking of speaking into the mic, we're at the very same issue I think you just had. I couldn't hear all of what you said. But her point was basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's basically a rubric or chart showing the differences between all of them, what each town center has and doesn't have as far as sewer, water, etc., so that you can see, okay, this is what St. Leonard has or doesn't have compared to the other 7. And correct. Yes. Did that answer your question? Can you hand her the mic so that we can?
You said in the beginning that she made some good points, but we couldn't hear the good points. So you can tell us what good points she made. That would be very helpful.
And I hope somebody took notes on her good point. What were your original points? Because I know I wrote them down, but I'd have to go back to.
If they could provide us with what each town is designated as, and if they have sewer or not, septic, so we have an idea of what we are supposed to be voting for, or
We want that, we don't want that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't even know. I don't want a Prince Frederick, but what is Prince Frederick considered? What is Dunkirk considered?
Right now, they're all considered town centers.
And which ones have sewers and which ones don't? Yes. Yeah. And flyers or papers, which Ms. Hill said, to put in front of our faces that we can look at, that we can read when we walk into these.
Chesapeake Beach does, but they're their own town, their own incorporated. They're an own entity. They're their own thing. Chesapeake Beach and North Beach are their own individual entity. They're located in Calvert County, but they are their own independent municipality, taxing authority, and all that. So we can't tell them what they can and can't develop. But
my question is, do they have sewers?
yes. Just provide the simple answer. That's what you can say. Say, Jason, just answer yes or no.
Because they have small shops and restaurants.
Yeah.
That's why.
They got a lot higher taxes.
I'd like to make just one last comment on the sewer thing. A gentleman, I believe, mentioned Happy Buddha, beautiful store. People do a wonderful job. This health department in Calvert County will not allow them to put tables in. Reason? Inadequate sewer. Their septic system is not adequate, and the availability of land to do it is not adequate. You want restaurants, you want nice facilities. There's no other way you're going to get it unless you have sewer, believe me. I'm in the business, I know. And it's up to you folks to impress upon these people what you want in your town center, because you're the ones who are going to make the final decision. I'm not hearing any clarification out of them. I'm almost getting the feeling that they're fighting the sewer. So unless you get together and really tell them what you want and somehow express to this man and this board of what is needed, you understand we cannot put in a restaurant because the county will not allow us, the health department. Okay? It's simple as that.
Okay, I'd like to clarify. We're not fighting, we're not for, we're not against. We are trying to get feedback from you all on what your vision is for this town center. So we do appreciate your feedback, and again, we've gotten some mixed feedback. You know, so overall, if you, what Jason said, where do we draw the line? If you want improvements, if you want additional restaurants and some shops, you're gonna need some sewer. Where do we draw the line? What limits do we want to put on that? It seems like you don't want to have, you know, hundreds and hundreds of homes. So, right, so just, this is the framework from which we need to look at this. And you need to continue to provide this feedback, and again, you want to see improved benches, streetscapes, roads, maybe a second access road. So, we're going to give you this feedback, summarize what we've heard here, and you correct us or confirm it.
And I'll just wrap up by saying thank you all for coming out tonight. I've got some business cards here I'll leave. It's got my cell phone on it, so feel free to call my cell phone if you have questions, or I may not always answer on the weekend, but the county pays for this number. Your tax dollars pay for it, so you can call me directly. Feel free to email. The information on there should have an email address as well if you want your comments in writing, and that's probably the safer way to do it as opposed to just talking to me on the phone. But if you need to get in contact with me, I'm going to leave my business cards up here as well. But thank you for coming out. I know some of y'all showed up seeking answers. That's not where we're at in this stage. We're having this community conversation so that hopefully in the future we can have some answers and some clarification. But thank you all for coming out once again. Thank you.